Okay, I'm going to call call to order the April 21st meeting of the Environmental Resource Committee of Sunset Beach. We have a quorum, so we should stand up and give the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. First item is the draft agenda for the meeting. Are there any amendments anyone wants to make?
Well,
Not.
This is actually a question. Seemed like at the most recent meeting, we talked about making a field trip to Wilmington to go to the rain garden over there. Has that been put on the back burner, or just haven't done it?
That hasn't been done yet.
Fine, not a problem.
But
Don't need to add that to agenda. Just
Well, I think we can talk about that.
Okay, cool.
We can talk about that in the next section.
Cool.
So if there's no other comments on the agenda, I need a motion to approve them.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have an approved agenda. Next item is discussion of items not on agenda. And the visit with the Coastal Federation is an item from the last meeting that I failed to follow through on.
It's not a big deal, Mr. Chairman. I just was really wondering. That's all.
Well, it's something that I think we should continue to work on doing. So we'll try to fit that in the near future. One other item not on the agenda is that since I did the agenda, Tara Drupp, the finance director for the town, will join us at some point in the meeting to share with us the things that she's been doing in relation to the recycling program. She gets a lot of information about the literature that's available, and she has ordered some of it for the town, and I was not aware of that until I had talked to her. So she'll be here to tell us what she's doing, and we'll try to work with her going forward. Are there any other items that we should discuss that are on the agenda? Nobody has anything, okay. Public comments. Greg, would you check to see if there's any? Okay. So we have no public visitors. In the announcement that Lisa did by email, the announcement of this meeting that Lisa did by email, she added a paragraph that said if anybody had any comments or ideas relative to recycling, that they could email me directly for public input at the meeting. I got no emails with anybody's comments or ideas or criticisms of the recycling program the town has. For anyone that's watching us by video today, after today's meeting, if you have further thoughts or comments or suggestions about anything that we discuss, feel free to email me at my ERC email address, which is on the website. Uh, Next item are the meeting minutes of our March 17th meeting. Does anyone have any amendments to that? Anything that we missed or misstated? Harold, do you have any comments?
Not at all.
Greg?
Oh, good.
Done.
I'm good.
All right.
I wrote them.
So I need a motion to approve.
I approve.
Second.
Got it. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we have meeting minutes. If you would sign this, Don, then we'll give that to Lisa after the meeting. I see Lisa has arrived. Welcome. Tara. Yeah. I'll blame it on my the anesthesia I had yesterday with my surgery.
It's residual effects.
Yeah. Well, we're up to a guest speaker. We really don't consider you a guest, but you are a guest. So if now might be a good time for you to share with us, or we can talk to each other about the recycling.
Tara, I'm the secretary. What is your last name?
Drop. Drop. It's DROPP.
DROPP. Thank you.
Okay.
So I had emailed back and forth with you, Mr. Farrell, and I had let you know that I actually had applied for a grant for our recycling. It's just the grant is not in monetary value at all. It's through the DEQ, and it's just a mailing to all the citizens in Sunset Beach. And we had a couple options of what you could send. Curbside pickup was our option because that's what we offer. So I have actually brought the two pieces that we've applied for. It's so that there is education about what you can recycle, what you can't recycle, and the other one is about not bagging your recycling. So one is actually a postcard that sends out, and the other one is actually a magnet that they can put on the refrigerator. This won't be approved, or we won't know anything until later in the summer, and nothing comes to town hall. It immediately goes out to everybody.
Cool.
That
Tara, let me maybe nitpick a little bit. Say all the citizens in the town, is that the property owners or residents? Every home would get one, irrespective of second home, vacant, blah,
Correct.
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I explained to them because I had called to find out because I wasn't sure if it meant the customers or who was supposed to be the recipients.
Right.
And I told them that, our population, the homes in our town actually exceed our population.
Right. Right.
And so, there's a lot of second homes here.
Oh, yeah.
And so I put down total homes
Okay.
and it'll go, the mailing list I uploaded goes to the property owner's mailing address. So they would have to bring it to their second home because a lot of them, there's post office boxes. They don't actually receive mail.
Yeah, I guess I'm being the devil's advocate here. I can see some issues, obvious issues with that, but we'll beat that horse some other time.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a mailing directly from the DEQ to
Correct.
the property owner.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we're glad that
Yeah.
that you
It's good.
that you did that and that you know about that. It was an idea that we had
Yeah.
to do too,
Right.
but we didn't know it was so easily done.
So Tara, it's this magnet, and what's the brochure?
The other one is a postcard, and it's don't bag your recyclables. It's an anti-contamination postcard.
Okay. So I don't think I've seen that.
If I may, let me add something here, maybe piggyback. There's a lot of folks in town that don't know where the 2 county recycling collection boxes are up 904. I didn't know for the first 8 or 9 months I lived here, because they don't have signs out on the highway pointing to them. I asked Cindy, she said, well, it's up, da, 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 da. Then I stumbled across the one at the Ocean Isle Beach Park. So I think if you get that information, people, because we live, well, obviously we live in town, and I go by the Ocean Isle Beach Park a lot, so I just drop my stuff off there. That's just another thought.
Well, there are signs on 904 on Sunset Boulevard
But
pointing towards the recycling.
it doesn't tell you where it is.
No, well, but there is one when you get up there.
but that one sign just says ahead.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway,
And
that's
it's
another.
not easy to find,
That's another dead horse. We'll beat some other time too.
but, okay.
So Terry, was there any discussion about possibly giving the materials to the rental companies on the island?
For this grant,
Yes.
this was specifically for homeowners. There wasn't a lot of a leeway in it. It was, you basically just choose the materials, and it was either curbside and pickup, or if we offered curbside, or if we offered curbside and drop off, and that was what decided. And then it just asks you how many homes, and upload the mailing list for the homes. Like it wasn't like I wrote a grant asking specifically, can we do this? Can we have some of these? It was one or the other, and you just kind of submit it. Because there's we won't actually receive anything here, and there's no monetary to us for it. It's they get a mailing list and they send it out.
Okay.
How many homes do you have?
There is 5,081 homes.
How many homes are presently using?
Recycling,
Yes.
it is
16%.
yeah. So there is currently 474 homes on the island, and 588 homes on the mainland. So 34.8% of the island and 16.2% of the mainland are recycling currently.
Those numbers are again 440. What was the island?
So the island, the total homes on the island is 1,364. Well, this was actually last year's numbers. It's changed some, and that was 474 are recycling. That's a current number. And then on the mainland, it's 588 homes that are recycling currently.
And
Those
how many-
numbers were just from last week that we had.
How
pulled.
many homes are on the mainland?
How many total homes on the mainland? 3,630. That's an old number that I had from when I had gone to council
How old?
January of 19, I think.
Of 19. So, would you say 3,300?
It's 36.
Okay, 37.
36,
So
Yeah,
it's probably 4,000 now.
yeah, there's more than that now.
Yeah, it's
This
more
is
than
an old
that,
number.
especially with the number
More than
of lots that
4,000?
been platted. It's probably around 4,000. It's north of that. I just don't have an
Well,
exact number.
And
That are
then
not
it's gonna
using-
be another 500 north of that. So
Yeah.
we're looking at 5,000 here.
Yeah, my number's off by about 100 homes total.
Yeah.
So,
Well, one of the things we had discussed was providing the rental companies with similar brochures so that every time a new rental comes, that would be in their rental package so that
making copies of something.
making copies, buying copies, however we can get them.
Right. So one of the things that I had pulled when I was doing this, GFL has their recycling guidelines on their website.
Right.
That's one of the things that would probably be beneficial for that, and that's just making copies. and putting it in a packet for the rental.
And the DEQ has a whole bunch of different
Right.
things that can be copied and used also.
So who would actually take that banner and make that happen? Is it us? Is it, the Environmental Assistance Division? Who is actually going to make the flyers and then they actually deliver them to the rental companies? Because I know Carol was talking about that, John, here in her.
All right, well, I guess there's a number of ways it could be done. The simplest way is to give them the file and tell the rental company to make copies and put it in the package.
Mm-hmm.
Because the file, I've downloaded all of the picture files or the PDF files from their website, and we can just give them to the rental companies and say, here, these have to be in the package. I assume we have the
Yeah,
authority.
we can't make them, but
That's a key point, John.
I assume the town has the authority to direct the rental companies and what they do with the rentals.
Don't know. I doubt it.
No?
Sunset Vacations will not add this information to their packets. I already talked to them. Sloan will, and Sunset Properties will. Sunset Vacations will not.
I like the idea of the magnets that go in the refrigerator. We've got one in our refrigerator. I guess we could buy, the town could buy a bunch or get Mickey up at the county to maybe give us some. I don't know.
Harold, point here. More and more refrigerators will not.
They're stainless.
They're
Yeah.
stainless.
Yeah,
That's the coming thing. It's not the coming thing. It's already here.
yeah.
So the
Yeah.
refrigerator magnets aren't always the right
Well,
answer.
that's true.
now.
well, another option too with that, I don't know. I haven't talked to any of the rental companies or anything like that. There are stickers that can go on the cans. I don't know if that would help rental companies instead of giving out. Because what is it that are you trying to make sure that they put the correct things into the? Is that
We're
what
trying
we're
to
looking at?
tell the visitors that
Like what can
they're
and can't-
expected to recycle
Okay.
and what can and cannot be recycled.
Yeah.
And it's not just recycling, but it's also household waste. Household waste are supposed to be bagged in the waste cans.
Right.
I didn't know that until Mickey mentioned that in one conversation. I've lived here 7 years and
I didn't know it either.
nobody ever told us. There's a lot of little nuances like that that need to be communicated, and we're trying to figure out all of them and how to best do that.
Right.
And it seems like the rental companies are the
Best bet.
best bet to work with. Now, rental companies are not, they're not under the, they're North Carolina businesses. They're subject to the general statutes and laws of North Carolina. And North Carolina laws are very clear that you should have a robust recycling plan for your business as well as your household. So maybe the rental companies aren't aware of that. I'm sure, I would think they probably are.
Yeah, and it's declare who's the enforcer.
Well, that's the problem. But the first thing we have to do is make all these requirements more generally known. And I'm not sure the best way to do that is. We got some ideas we're going to talk about today. You're welcome to stay with us as long as you can stand it. But you participated in the April 5th
Yes.
video, and that's really the next thing that we're going to go through.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some of the things on those slides. I edited the PowerPoint and took some of the things out, but there's still quite a number of slides there. But you probably didn't realize all the things that we were trying to do on recycling. And I wasn't aware until we talked about what you were doing. So
Right.
I'm glad you came, that we can coordinate our efforts. And
Yeah, every other year, we do a mass mailing to the entire database for the tax base with the same thing, the same addresses that we've done for this grant that I was just telling you about, to try to increase recycling participation, because it is costly. The administrative cost when we do that is around $8,000 for recycling, because the mailing alone costs around $6,000 just to have it created and sent out, and try to increase the participation to every household. And this year it actually increased more without sending a mass mailing out. So it's definitely, something to keep watching, trying to figure out the best way to do.
One thing, Mr. Chairman, that we ran across when we moved here is that I actually called the town about recycling, and she said, I think Cindy, I talked with Cindy, she said, oh, you need to sign up before September the 1st or October the 1st to get on next year's cycle. I thought, gosh, we missed it like by 2 weeks or something. So a whole year went by, and I said, after a year, I said, I'll just take it down to the county.
Yeah, so since I've come here in the past 2 years,
Uh-huh.
we actually, if you're a new customer, we prorate it.
Okay.
The where we don't prorate it is it's all because of cost. Where if you have recycling and you don't renew, and we give quite a extensive grace period for that as well, and your cart gets picked up, we get charged a $25 fee, and we've continued to be having to pay
Yeah.
on top of that. So then you just have to pay the whole year and the $25 fee, but you can sign up all year long.
Okay.
It's just, the town's not paying for the whole thing. We're trying to, the customer's paying for it, and it's a huge discount, which I don't know if people realize. Even with adding administrative costs for the town, it's a significant discount. And for the island, for these, like the rental places and things like that, if we didn't do this, there would be no second pickup.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts to this process, aren't there?
yes,
At this,
and
What's that? I'm sorry.
there's a lot of moving parts to this whole process.
Right.
so the mailing that the DEQ is going to do, that's paid for by the town?
Mhm.
Okay.
So we have a guy that picks up, I shouldn't say pickup's the wrong word, moves the cans back into the carports out on the island all year long.
Yes.
And I'm assuming he does that 1 day a week, 2 days a week in the summer.
Correct.
So without actually asking the question, I'm just going to assume for a moment that it costs us $10,000 to do that. I don't know what the exact number is, doesn't matter. My point though is this. So if you are renting your home to someone, it isn't automatic that your can gets taken care of. This town of Sunset Beach, in my opinion, is providing that service to you, Mr. Homeowner, Mrs. Homeowner, but it's costing the town. What I think we should propose is, going forward, if people aren't going to recycle properly, we have to think of other ways to make revenue, and possibly take this to the town council and say, why don't we charge people for that service?
To have the cart move back.
Let me ask this
You're
question.
getting your cart put back.
I don't know what I wasn't here when that program was implemented.
Well, I
So
think
I can ask,
I
I'm not
was
sure
here.
I'm not sure if it was, like, what the basis behind the initial thought was. If
Well,
it was
it's just, it's unsightly. There's
aesthetic.
no other reason. It was unsightly for homeowners like myself to see cans out on the streets, on the island, all summer long.
Because the homeowners aren't here.
In
Right, is
addition,
that
the renters continually, to this day, during the high season, which is mid-June through the first week in August, that's high season to me, the cans are used haphazardly.
Oh, yeah.
If it's an empty can, it's used for trash. So, well, we got to skin one cat at a time, right?
Right.
So those people are never recycling. Sometimes they do, but if they end up having more trash, they use the recycling can for trash. So there again, I think this goes back to those homeowners that are renting these places to the tourists, that they should pay a premium for having those cans maintained.
Amen.
I'm gonna
Okay,
expo- I'm going to expose my ignorance here. I guess I'm still fairly new to the town. Live out in Windfall on the mainland. Why are the dumpster things or the can, whatever they're called, picked up on the island and not on the mainland? I would move back on the island, not on the mainland. What's the difference there? They look just as ugly.
I don't have an answer.
Uh,
I believe that part of that is paid out of the accommodation tax.
okay,
Like
okay.
the whole second pickup, all of that, the cost for that comes out of accommodation
Yeah.
tax. So, because we have a total separate fund that has the special revenue that comes from the taxes that are paid, and so I know that like the second pickup and costs associated with that come out of the accommodation
Okay.
tax, and then as far as the having the cart pushed back, that's not specifically paid by accommodation tax, but we do have the excess revenue that gets moved over into it. So you could argue that it is, but it's not specific.
Well,
So, I mean, with the rental homes, that's what some of that stems from the tax that they pay.
Tara, the way I see it is people that are renting their homes are getting the service for free. That's the way I see it.
well,
And I wanted to put that on the record.
but I think she just said that the accommodation tax that the renters pay covers that cost.
Okay.
Is that not what she said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, it's also my understanding if you live in the mainland and if for some reason you can't move your cans yourself, that the town will do that, or the GFL will do that for you.
yeah.
So it's not an automatic thing.
You need a little sticker or something on your mailbox, I think.
You need something,
Yeah.
right?
Like if
I'm
you're
not sure.
physically challenged or something like that.
Yeah, if you have some disabilities or something.
The people that are not on the island, they're really upset that we're paying to pick those the recycling cans and put them back under the shed or wherever. You don't do it for those people who are living here.
Right.
You understand? And
I mean,
like
I
to
understand what
know-
you're saying. I was just like, I know that part of it is because of accommodation tax, the tax that's paid. It's an additional revenue due to the fact for the renters. I think that the initial purpose of it was due to the rental homes and the homeowners not being here because they live somewhere else in the state or somewhere else in the country. And so they're not here every week and they have property managers or whoever are renting it out to move that cart back. I believe that that was the initial purpose for it. As far as the specifics of that program, I really can't
Yeah.
speak to that.
You don't know the cost of what the town is paying for that.
I don't have the specific. I mean, it would be a salary time the hours that
Yeah, that's
that
why I
person
said
specifically
roughly
spends
$10,000.
on
I
that.
just took a guesstimate as to what John is being paid as a town employee. I think his name is John, is it not?
What's that?
The gentleman that comes around the island and picks up, I think his name is John, if I recall.
I'm not sure of his first name. I just know it's Mr. Green.
Okay, you've updated us on what you do. You've given us more information about what the town's doing on recycling. I looked at the town website this morning. There is a very specific item called recycling program that explains that if you come into town after the recycling season begins, you can sign up
Okay,
and
good.
get a prorated reduction in the cost of recycling. And I do remember reading somewhere that GFL is printing up new lids for the recycling containers that explain what you can and cannot put in the recycling containers.
Yeah, I know they
And
were
at some
changing the
point,
color.
they will come around and change the lids out.
Yeah, I know that they were changing the color of the lids.
Oh, is that
So
right?
so one's gonna have, like as they replace them, I think that some of them are blue right now.
Right,
But, right? So it's gonna be a green can with a black lid and a black can with a green lid.
Hmm.
One's recycling and one's trash.
Oh,
That all started when they became GFL from Waste Industries.
well,
I
I know
think it's
that,
as they're, replacing them. I don't know the schedule of that at all.
yeah, the newer homes built in our community have different color cans than the older homes.
Yeah.
So they haven't switched them all over yet. Okay. Are there any other questions for Tara? Like I said, you're welcome to stay with us, or I'm sure you have
I
a lot
probably
going on
can't.
with
I'm
budget.
sorry. It's budget and all kinds of stuff going on.
That's fine. Thank you for
Absolutely.
your time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Tara.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the April 5th PowerPoint. Doesn't seem to be coming on.
Hmm.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Okay, now Greg and I found out later Tara participated in this recycling meeting. Chad, I don't know if you did or not. We didn't talk about it.
Yeah, I did not.
I'm sure you have a long list of other priorities. This meeting was put on for Baltimore County. It was put on by the Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service, which is part of the DEQ. The acronym for the division is DEECS. And I was not even aware there was such a division. And I think I have sent everybody a copy of this, or that tells about all the things that DEECS does. So we will go through and talk about some of the things that that are in the state recycling program. DEECS is not a regulatory agency. One of the big things they do is provide local government assistance with technical assistance, grants, studies, conferences, and reports. They worked with Mickey Bozeman to put this show together, and Mickey invited people in Baltimore County to participate in it. The first thing they talked about is, why should we recycle? And there are a lot of justifications for recycling. The amount of plastic, paper, and glass that is recycled results in the conservation of materials. You can also equate recycling to climate change mitigation. And there are materials the DEQ has that explains what that's all about. So recycling gets into a lot of the things that we're interested in. And, but the thing that, that they got to eventually were the laws related to recycling. General Statute 130A 309.10 says that aluminum cans, plastic bottles, and beverage containers from ABC permit holders are banned from landfill disposal.
That seems kind of odd. Why, I wonder?
It's federal law too,
Okay.
that those materials are supposed to be recycled and they're not supposed to be landfilled.
Okay.
In fact, landfill operators, if a load of waste arrives at their site and they see a large quantity of aluminum, plastic, glass, and cardboard in the container, they will turn it back.
Huh.
They will not let it be dumped
Yeah.
in the landfill.
Huh.
One other thing I learned from Mickey is that in Brunswick County, we have a landfill of Bolivia, but it's limited to disposal of construction and demolition debris. Household waste is not allowed to be disposed of in Bolivia. All the household waste that's collected goes up to Sampson County to a town called Roseboro, where GFL has a privately owned landfill that they operate. So GFL does the collection here. The materials are taken to Bolivia. They're transferred from the collection trucks to larger transfer trucks, and then they're hauled up the road to another landfill. The landfill in Bolivia has a limited life cycle left. That's why it's really limited to construction and demolition debris. I don't know that anybody knows what the life cycle of the GFL landfill is, but obviously the more materials that are separated from the West Stream and sent off for recycling, the longer that landfill will last. And during the meeting, I asked the question if anybody had done an analysis of the life cycle cost of the landfill with and without recycling. And all they know are the current numbers of cost, not the projected costs. But if we don't increase the recycling, the cost of landfilling is going to keep going up, and those costs are going to result in increased taxes. Our household waste collection costs are included in our county taxes, in Brunswick County taxes. The recycling is done on a town-by-town basis. Of all the coastal communities in Brunswick County, Sunset Beach and I believe Holden Beach are the only two communities that do not have mandatory recycling, with the cost of recycling in the tax base. Some of the others have looked at taking it out of the mandatory cycle or mandatory practice, but in fact, I was told by the DEQ that Caswell Beach wanted to take away mandatory recycling. And they formed a task force of community leaders and community residents to look at the possibility of doing that. And after they considered it, they decided to keep it in the tax base. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. The other thing they told us in the meeting is that 80% of the recycled material that's collected in the Carolinas is reused. It's used by industry to make other products. So people that think there's no use for recycled materials because the Chinese aren't accepting waste anymore, that's not the case in the Carolinas. There is a very high reuse of those materials, and that goes a long way to extending the life of the landfills. Anybody that has any questions at any time can interrupt me. This is a slide about how recycling saves energy. I believe everybody has received this PowerPoint presentation, so I'm not going to go through each slide in great detail. Saving energy is a big part of climate mitigation. Because if you save energy, you save the generation of power, which is a pollutant, and you save the impacts on the climate from energy usage. This is a slide with the local markets for recyclables. In North Carolina, 34% of recycled material is reused. In South Carolina, 22%, and in the other southern states, 27%.
What's MRF?
MRF is an acronym for Material Recovery Facility.
Okay.
The material recovery facility that Brunswick County uses is in Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's run by a company called Sunoco, not the
Gas.
oil and gas company. It's spelled with an O, not a U. But Sunoco is also a manufacturer. They recycle plastics and make the clamshell products that you find in the food stores. They recycle paper and make cardboard products that are sold throughout the area. So they're very interested in getting a lot of recycled material. They have, in North Carolina, they have 3 different MRFs, one in Jacksonville, one in Raleigh, and one in Charlotte. And in South Carolina, there's a couple more. So recycling is big business in the southeastern U.S. And this is different for people, or this is new information for people that move here, particularly from the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, because that's not the case in those areas. Recycling creates jobs. This shows the employment associated with recycling. I found this very interesting. Brunswick County per capita is in the 2018-19 year was number 4 out of 100 counties in North Carolina. When you talk about it with people that know, that's primarily because recycling is mandatory and is built into the tax base. And what the DEQ told me is that in Sunset Beach, we have a 16% recycling participation. And that's a couple neighbors that I've talked to that don't recycle is because of the cost. Unless people are forced to pay for it, they're not going to use the service. Years ago, recycling was largely sent to China. In 2017, China stopped that. And that put a burden on U.S. markets to find a use for the recycled material. And that caused a fluctuation. Fortunately for the southeastern U.S., that's not an issue. But in a lot of areas, it is. A very good friend of mine lives in California in the Palm Desert area. And because China won't take their recyclable materials anymore, all the recycled material just goes right into local landfills. And we really shouldn't allow that to happen where we live. Market prices on recycled material fluctuate wildly. You can see here, after China stopped accepting waste, that the prices for recycling dropped dramatically. But if you also look at the end of the chart, they're starting to recover. But there's no set, there's no constant economics associated with recycling. They fluctuate wildly. This is another chart of market prices for containerized waste. And you can see how it recently it's dropped quite a bit. But again, you see that it's starting to recover. And I think as the economy recovers from the pandemic, we'll continue to see those values of recycled material go up. But I can only guess that. Material that goes to the MRFs is primarily paper, cardboard, glass, and plastics, and cans. There's a small amount of contamination. I will say 17% is a small amount. That can't be recycled, and that gets separated and goes to landfills. But the rest of it, they find a use for. It's big business for companies to use recycled material. It saves them a lot of money. This chart shows the fluctuation in value of recycled materials. In 2017, 1 ton of commingled recycling was worth about $75. Last year, that dropped down to below $50. And those numbers, as you remember from the charts, they go up and down. And that affects the charges that companies like GFL place on the town for waste collection and recycling. This shows that recycling has a couple of elements to it. It has a value of the material in the recycled mix, and it has a processing cost. And it used to be that if you couldn't pay for it from the value of the material, that it didn't get recycled. But now, because it's mandatory to recycle, they get paid a recycling fee to do the recycling. And that's a new element of the economics of recycling that most of us aren't aware of because we didn't grow up in that kind of world. When we talk about recycling, the attitude that the DEQ has about recycling is pretty much mandated by legislation and by regulation. Recycling is considered a service and an investment. It is not it's not a nicety. It's not an optional activity. It's required by legislation that materials not be put into landfills, and it's required by legislation that that municipalities and county governments are mandated to have robust recycling programs. I don't want to be one to judge what's robust and what's not robust, but that's what the law says. Elements of a successful recycling program, they found that single stream collection with carts is the most effective way to do that. The other way to do that would be to have containers like up at the convenience center, or they used to have containers as you drove off the island to put your household waste and your recycled waste in. And they stopped doing that because they were abused. They weren't properly used. And as Don points out, a lot of people in town don't even know where the convenience center is. And certainly visitors on their way out of town at the end of a week have a carload of personal belongings, not a carload of trash to drop off as they leave town. Single stream recycling provides universal access. Every household gets a cart and is expected to use it properly. And it requires ongoing education for people to learn and to be reminded on what to do and how to do it. Reasons to recycle. I think we all understand these. It's a business. It conserves natural resources. It conserves energy. It decreases pollution. It saves landfill space. There's a lot of very positive parts to it, but it costs money. There are a lot of myths associated with recycling. People think it should be free, but it's a service. It's that we get provided for us. It's one that has to be paid for. It's all going to the landfill. In the Southeast, in North Carolina and South Carolina, it's not being landfilled. In fact, it's specifically prohibited from being landfilled. And recycling, many people think it's complicated, it's confusing, and it differs from place to place. Well, it is different in this region from other regions of the country, but in throughout North Carolina, it's very straightforward, and it's done the same way everywhere. Doesn't have to be recycling. I mean, complicated or confusing. If you don't understand, or if you can't decide if an item can be recycled or not, put it in the trash. But most of the time, if you work with it, you'll learn, and you'll be able to pick the right container to put it in. Are there any questions about this? I'm not going to talk about each one. I just want to emphasize the highlights. Okay, now here's where we get to something I followed up on after the meeting. Down at the bottom, it says Deeks can assist. We can reduce contamination in the waste stream through education, through flyers, through a lot of different ways that we need to come up with. Right? One of the services that Deeks provides is what they call a local government recycling assistance team. They will bring a team of experts into the town, and they will work with the town to evaluate and come up with a cost-effective recycling program that's based on the best practices and lessons learned throughout the state. We cannot engage them to do this until we get approval from the town council. One of the other things that the DEQ does, it's not done through Deeks, but they will do a waste analysis. They will send a team of people in, and they will study the town, and they will evaluate the waste streams. I think this would be particularly useful for the island, although I'm sure it would be of great value on the mainland too. But to understand the volume of waste, the types of waste, the waste disposal options that people are given, all of the elements of waste disposal and recycling can be studied, and they can use their experience, knowledge, and best practices from other areas to give us ideas about how to make improvements in the disposal of our waste. And again, we can't engage the DEQ to do this until we get approval from the council.
How do we do that?
Well, as a follow-up to this meeting, I want us to put our ideas together. I want to pick up the highlights that we've talked about from this slideshow, and I want us to put together a presentation that we can take to a council meeting in May and say, okay, we've looked at recycling, we've talked to all the experts we know to talk to, and this is what we propose to do. I'm sure each one of us has different ideas about what we propose to do, but we have to reach some consensus on what they are to tell the council, get their approval to do it, and then make it happen.
Well, I think we've been told that we can't raise taxes or ask for money. True?
Well, we can't. The council can if they decide to do that. But right now, they're going through the budgets for next year. And there isn't going to be any change, anything added to that at this time. But so we have a short-term option about what we can do, and then there's a longer-term option that we can recommend that the council consider for the next to the
Next
next
term.
year. But I'm very proud of what we've done over the last several months for the people that we've talked to and the information that we've gathered and the things we've learned. When we first talked about this meeting, I felt like we were going to try and reinvent the wheel on recycling. And then I found out about this Deeks organization, and I realized we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
The North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality has all that information and can be helpful to us with lessons learned and best practices and a view of the regulatory requirements of the state. So that's one direction we can go in. We do have education that we can do. And you guys have started by trying to get brochures and things that we can give to the homeowners and visitors and try to get better use of the recycled processes that we do have. But I would hope that we could see a dramatic increase in the recycling that the town gets done. 16% recycling, in my mind, is not a very good track record. It's not robust. But I also understand if we went to a full mandatory recycling program, as Lisa told Greg and I the other day, that would add 4 cents to the tax rate.
Nothing.
That's a lot of money.
4%.
4 cents for the tax rate that the town charges the residents. It's a lot of money for people that are retired on fixed incomes, and
What does that work out to be for the year?
Roughly 1 cent is about 100, just north of 100 grand.
thought it was 156,000.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say 125. I just didn't know the exact number.
Yeah, I think it's 151. So 4 cents is $600,000 to the total town budget.
600,000?
Yeah.
Wow. How much per home?
I think it's
I'm not 100% sure on those numbers. I don't know.
I think
if
it's about
Lisa or
$90.
Say again?
I think it's about $90 a household. So, but whether it's part of the town, to me, it's should be in the county taxes. But whether it's part of the county taxes or the town taxes, it's the same amount of money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now the
I mean, and it's not. I live in the county. I live out in Winnebago. I don't get the option for recycling, which is unfortunate. Or maybe I need to look into the recycling program, but I know that
so,
towns,
so you don't recycle, you don't separate.
I don't have the option to. I mean, there was a time where my brother and I were recycling cans and aluminum, and we'd have to take them. But as far as a regulatory pickup or bin, I don't get that opportunity.
It would be extremely expensive to pick up in the county, the non-urban areas.
And the county doesn't have disposal sites where,
Yeah, I mean, they have the parks.
okay.
Well, they do. They do. Actually, they've got a good number of them.
This is part of the presentation that people love recycling. 84% look at it as a valuable public service. Again, because it's built into the program that the county and county and towns provide for people. This is the service offerings that Deeks provides, and again, this is something that is in the material that I've sent you. After listening to this presentation, this show was put on by Matt James. I called Matt and talked to him, and I said, "Who do we talk to about the recycling assistance teams?" And he connected me to a woman named Carol, who was chomping at the bits to come down here and help us get improve the recycling program that we have. She did a lot of research on the town, told me a lot of the statistics similar to what Tara told us. And she's ready, willing, and able to help us develop a recycling plan. I've been trying to get a hold of somebody to tell me what this waste assessment program is all about. But I haven't gotten any callbacks about that yet. But rather than us come up with our own ideas, I would like to suggest to town council that we engage the DEQ in this recycling assistance program that they have. And we find out how and get a waste assessment done to tell us better ways of managing our waste than we're using right now. But those are just two ideas. So I'd like input from the committee on other ideas that you might have. I don't think we can walk into, well, I'm not going to.
Well, John, look,
Negate
we have two separate environments in Sunset Beach. Two separate environments. You have the island, which is essentially a resort town, and you have the mainland, which is mostly like all other places in North Carolina. I think the two are different. That said, I think in my opinion, there's no other way to come up with a plan that is somewhat separate from one another. It's just my opinion. So my vote would be to come up with an option for the town council that provides for both of those parts of the town, because there's no way that I can see, and all the information that we've been given and I've read, that we can come up with a plan that will satisfy both parts of the town, not from where I sit.
One of the things that is on my mind is I think if you do present make a presentation to the town council, is make it at a very high level and not get too far into the weeds, because you're going to lose them, particularly this time of year, budget stuff on their mind. I don't think we need to get into how we built the clock, but more so what time it is. I know all this stuff's important, but for the council, they've got ever how long their agenda is, and their attention span may be on other attention may be on other things. I think that's real important. It's just the big picture kind of approach. But I do think that your point you just made about the two separate towns has a lot of value, because what works for me obviously it's not going to work in Ireland in terms of the neighborhoods and so forth. It's a whole different deal. That's a good point.
Greg, I agree with you, but I think we have two different programs. The collection cycle for the island is different than the mainland.
And it may be, no, not necessarily we forget about the main island, but we focus on the mainland first. I don't know. That's just a random thought. I don't know.
Harold, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the island is a better fix than here because we got all of these trailer parks and all of those people that will not buy into it.
Absolutely.
But the island, I think they would buy into most anything we.
Maybe.
Well, the island has the possibility of using the accommodations tax to levy charges for the recycling and to pay for it.
I don't know what the exact numbers are, Chad. Maybe you can help me out here. But my guess would be that as home ownership and home building expands on the island to the point of no lots left, and we're approaching that number right now, I offer that there are less people renting on the island percentage-wise than ever before. I mean, I'd like to look at those numbers. It's just my guess, though, being out there, seeing what I see. More and more people, like myself over the last 10 years, have become permanent residents. Now, it used to be, back in the 90s, there were less than 100 people living on the island in the winter. Today, I'll bet I'm going to say 300. Again,
Yes.
I don't know exactly what my numbers are, but my point is that the numbers are going up. So it's becoming less of a seasonal community and more of a permanent community. With that in mind, I think we have to start thinking more about being on a permanent cycle for recycling out on the island.
Well, I will say that in talking to people in Deeks that I've talked to, what comes up over and over again is enforcement. And part of enforcement is mandatory recycling, that it's built into the requirements of the town. That towns require it, you have to pay for it, and then you have a service provided for you. That's a big part of their program. When they said 85% of the people like recycling, you heard them. It's like because it's required. They don't have a choice.
You know, one thing I want to add to that, John, and I know both of us come from places where we have been recycling for a long time. I've been recycling up north for over 30 years. Most people that are moving into Sunset Beach are not coming from the south. They might be coming from the west, and they're coming from the north. So if you just look at the demographics, my opinion is that most people are already recycling. And to talk to them, to give the town council a recommendation that we promote mandatory recycling on the beach, I think it's not a stretch. I think it's very doable. Now, here on the mainland, I understand. To Harold's point, the demographics are a lot different. You know, there are new communities, Windfall and the two communities that are being built over here, and those are going to be, you know, snowbirds, or maybe a lot of those people will be permanent. But they are mixed in with other permanent communities here that are not used to recycling and would have a problem with the cost. I just think that we can come up with a plan, an option that provides for both sides of the town, and it would give the town council something to talk about.
Okay, now, should we do that in collaboration with the DEQ or without their experience and knowledge?
Well, I'll tell you what I'd like to do, and maybe, there's information out there already. How did Ocean Isle and other communities get to the point where they mandated recycling? I'd really like to know what was the tipping point for them. And I don't know what that answer is.
I don't either.
Same with Holden Beach. At some point,
Holden
they
Beach
were having.
doesn't have mandatory recycling.
Say again?
Holden Beach does not have mandatory recycling.
Oh, I thought they did.
No, Oak Island, Caswell,
Oh, Oakland.
Castle
Oak Island.
Beach, Oak Island, Ocean
Okay,
Isle.
so at some point in their history, they had committees, just like we have right now, that were in the same place that we are right now. And I'd like to know, because I don't know, what the tipping point was. What was the factor that made them say, all right, there's no other choice, we're going to mandatory recycling?
And I've said this again, a lot of it, the people are starting to look at the cost benefit analysis of recycling because the cost of recycling keeps skyrocketing and going up and up and up.
right? And it's going to continue to do that with household waste disposal. If recycled materials get buried in the trash stream and go into landfills. So, I mean, there's no simple way to disguise this stuff and put it somewhere else. It's got to have a home. It's better to be reused. There's less material.
No question.
There's less net material to dispose of with recycling, but it costs more money. But if we don't recycle it, it's got to go to a landfill, and the landfill costs are going up as the space is used up. So, again, I think right now our immediate first step is education.
Yep.
We've got to get a lot of information out to people.
That's my thing too, John. Education in a way that they can understand it, simple and over and over and over and over and over.
And I would like to suggest to the council that they make it a policy for the town that they support recycling and they support it for year-round, part-time, and vacationers that come in here, and that it be part of the that somehow or another we get the cooperation from the rental companies to provide the vacationers information about recycling so that they can do it properly. I don't have a good answer for that on how to do that, but I know that if we ask for it, we can get help from the DEQ. They've worked with other coastal communities. Have you ever seen this assistance program in operation before? Have you ever heard of it before? No. But they did work with, they told me they worked with Caswell Beach on their task force that looked at it and decided to continue to require mandatory recycling.
Yes. I know. I mean, Chad Hicks comes from Castle Beach. He was the town administrator there for years. Know him very well. He's actually at Carolina Shores now. I don't know what exactly they did. I know the Baptist Assembly has helped out with that program as well. In fact, they have a beach sweep tomorrow. And their sea turtle program gets involved with that pretty extensively as well.
Mickey Bozeman told me that she works a lot with Deeks. Deeks provides the grants that provide her the funds to do what she can do. the information that we've gotten her to give us, she's able to do that because of the funds she gets from Deeks to buy those things. She doesn't, the county's not paying that bill. It's being paid for by the DEQ.
Chad, let me go back. What were the islands that you mentioned? Caswell, Oak, Ocean Isle, and what else?
So the beach towns in Brunswick County are Bald Head Island. I don't know the extent of their recycling program. Caswell Beach, Oak Island, both of them currently recycle.
Ocean Isle.
Holden Beach, they do not. And
They
then
don't
Ocean
have
Isle.
mandatory.
Yeah, they don't have the mandatory. Holden Beach or Ocean Isle Beach, and then Sunset Beach.
Right.
Say again? Oh, and Sunset.
Sunset, yeah. And then
Vicky told me the only two that don't, and the DEQ confirmed it, that Sunset and Holden are the only two without
and then your
the
kind
requirement.
of surrounding beach areas incorporate into Southport and Calabash.
Yeah, I don't know what Calabash and Carolina,
Carolina
Shores
Shores.
and what those communities do.
No, Charlotte, I lived in Charlotte for a long time. Charlotte's makes it available, but not mandatory, and it's free. I mean, that was obviously not free, but you don't get a separate bill for it.
Do they
Can
have,
you expand on what was the make it available?
You call them and ask for a can, or I guess that time called Waste Industries and asked for a container. We had one for years, and they picked up every other week. In fact, we had much more recycling than we did regular household trash. That's what we did. But again, you have to want to recycle. We had a neighbor in Charlotte that says, "Oh, it's too much trouble to recycle." You know, how much trouble is it to have a separate container? But that's a whole other thing, too.
Harold, you said something a minute ago. I mean, going before the council, you can request what you want to in a direction you want to go in. They're gonna ask the questions of if there's a cost to it, how much is it, where did it come from, and the backing that comes from it for them to be able to justify doing it. Now, raising taxes, that's a different story. It's not different story, but kind of a different task. But you're an advisory board to the council. Planning board acts in the same way. They're an advisory board to the council.
I apologize if I'm not keeping up, but we keep talking about the tax base. Isn't the recycling program a fee-based program? I'm not sure I understand.
If I'm correct, the way I understand it, that it is a fee included into the taxes.
Okay.
I'm confused. It's a fee because it's treated as an optional service. And that's as much a question as it is a statement.
Yeah, it's a flat fee. In Oak Island, we added it into, for me, it's in my yearly tax bill for trash collection. I'm assuming recycle would be in there. If I don't know if I have the option. Maybe I need to look into it. Maybe it's in the
Are
program.
you in Oak Island?
I'm in the county. I'm in the
Okay.
county's jurisdiction.
So
With Oak Island, we did it into the water bills. We added it as a flat fee. It's like X amount of dollars a month into the water and sewer bill.
okay, so let me try to understand how it's different here in the Carolinas as opposed to up north. Up north, the borough, the township, whomever, contracts with a trash company. They get bids. It's a bid program. It's sent out, and then it's decided, okay, ABC company was chosen over XYZ company. But at that point, ABC company now sends you the bill. and all of us. So the town contracts the service. So they do the legwork. But the actual billing of the product is sent to the customers, to the residents. So my question is, the entire service is being channeled through the town government. Is that the way it's done everywhere in this state? Or is
I
it,
don't think the whole service is channeled through the town because
well, do we,
because waste collection is done through the county. That's in your county taxes. The county contracts with GFL.
okay, again, you're talking about taxes. I'm asking a question. When the bill, it comes in, and I'm sorry, I've not seen this bill. My wife pays this bill. So I don't know from what I speak. Is the bill a bill from the county, or is it a bill from Sunset Beach?
Not a bill. It's an application for recycling.
Right,
You fill it out,
correct.
you take a check in the application to the desk, and you ask the town to provide you a container, and they arrange with GFL to stop at your house and pick up your waste. You don't get a bill. You have to come.
So there's
in and
no
ask.
trash bill here. It's part of our taxes. That's what you're saying.
Right. Well, you pay for
Are all towns done that way, Chad?
yeah.
In Brunswick County, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is that you said, bid out to A, B, C.
Right.
However,
There's a
many-
bidding process.
There's a bidding process. In Brunswick County, you only got one.
What do you mean they only got one? They only got one bid, or
No
they
one-
only
no,
had?
They only have one option.
See,
Mandatory.
Yeah, GFL.
Yeah.
Wilmington, you have GFL. I think Pink Trash got out there. I mean, there's no competitor in Brunswick County.
Well, wow.
If we're
Shocking.
going to, before the board, we need to have 2 or 3 objectives of how we're going to improve what we're doing right now, recycling. We can't go in and say we need this much money or whatever. We
Right.
got to get through the door, but we know that down the road, if you're going to be successful, you've got to be mandatory.
Well,
Well, clearly my idea isn't going to work. And I'll say that right out loud. The idea of having an optional program isn't going to work. Because I was unaware that the entire program is filtered through the tax base, which is, I won't say.
I think,
okay. Don, go ahead.
well, I think it might be good to have Mickey back in on this conversation. She can answer most of these questions we've got about recycling, and because she's a solid waste go-to person with the county. She is it. I'm not sure right now we are in a position to go to the town council. There's just too many things out there swirling around that we don't have answers to, and the council's going to probably say, maybe come back when you've got the facts straight, because we've got a lot of things that we don't know answers to. That's not being critical; it's just the way it is right now.
Well, I agree with you,
Yeah.
but I think the only way we're going to get answers is to get expert help. And we can get that through Deeks on this recycling assistance team and on this waste assessment program that the DEQ has. So I guess my idea was to go to the council and say, we've studied recycling in this town exhaustively. And we have found that this DEQ has resources to help us with this. And we would like the authority to engage the assistance team and the waste assessment program to come in here and provide us with recommendations and expertise to come up with a better program and try to get their approval to go that way. And then we can work with Mickey and others to finalize the results of their recommendations. Because we're not expert enough, and we're reinventing the wheel. Chad, would you agree with that, or would you? I mean, we've spent an awful lot of time this year studying recycling, and the more we find out about it, the more we find out we don't
The more
know.
we don't know.
Yeah.
When Oak Island implemented the rollback cart ordinance in Oak Island, I worked extensively with information. And I think it all goes back to educating, and it's one of the hardest things in local government. It's one of the hardest things that I do is educating the public on not only what I do day to day, but also the information that I know, to educate the public on what they cannot do, not just on recycling, but planning, zoning, building, all the above. Education is a big important part to
So
that.
the rollback cart program, if I can ask a question here on
Sure.
that in Oak Island, was that a rollback only on the beach, or was that the entire town?
First two rows, first three
First two rows.
beach side, cross, and then
So Main Street on both sides, and then the,
Yep, because what
second
was
row.
happening is that they were leaving these carts out for X amount of days.
Sure.
Trash was being blown down the street.
Hey.
They were in the bicycle lane, so people couldn't run.
believe me, I
yeah,
know the,
yeah,
I know
yeah.
the drill.
So that's why the ordinance was implemented, and then we enforced it that if you did not roll it back within a certain period of time, we were fining you $50 a day.
Who enforced that? The police or public works?
Code
or-
enforcement.
Was it?
Me,
Oh, you. Okay.
code enforcement.
Okay.
That was and I had it down to a science. So yeah, I mean, there was,
Did people pay the fines?
we never got to that point. And that's where the accommodations people, I mean, that covered 95% of the rentals in Oak Island to be able to work with, especially Oak Island accommodations. They covered 80% of the, roughly, and then the two smaller ones, to where educating them, and they were willing to put stuff into the houses that I was providing, because they had to create jobs for their rental houses. I mean, there was one lady that had a startup business, and she got contracts through the rental companies. So that ordinance created her job. If the ordinance doesn't exist, that business is gone.
One of the things I stumbled on going through the DQ's website is this letter of September 28th from the state to all the local municipal government officials that highlights the general statutes on recycling, the banning of materials in the landfills, and the requirement on each government to establish and maintain a solid waste reduction program, and the separation of recyclables from trash. I assume, Chad, that everybody in town government has seen this letter or gotten it. It was dated September last year. So this isn't ancient history. This is relatively new. But I know there are a lot of other things going on in the town that have a very high priority, but
I mean, yeah, it's a general statute.
yeah. So
encouraged to separate marketable plastics, glass, metal, and all grades of paper for recycling prior to final disposal. State law.
I don't know how this is done in other places, but I'm pretty sure the DEQ does. And if they don't, they will find out in a hurry. So to me, the best course is to go to the council and say, we would like to seek the assistance to come in and look at what we're doing and tell us better ways to do things. But we need your approval to do that.
At no cost.
There's an education program that has to be done. I don't know if it requires an ordinance to require the rental companies to include this in their responsibilities of the renters. But I would almost leave that up to the DEQ to look at the whole system and make suggestions on what would be done. What are your thoughts, gentlemen?
I think we ought to move forward with it.
Yeah, all that, the worst can happen is they say no. It's kind of, but I certainly would support it. I think we've got to do something, and this is a step. It's moving the needle just a little bit, which could in turn move it a lot more. I think there's some value to having DEQ come in, because obviously as you said, the more we look at this, the more questions we have. I make a motion. I move that we, meaning the chair, approach the council about this initiative.
Do we have any more discussion about this?
Well, we need a second to discuss it. He's shaking his head. Is that a second?
Oh, I second. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Just to be clear.
Okay. So we have a motion that's been seconded to
Call for the question.
call for the question. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, yes, okay.
And if I may suggest, John, that you put together a fairly, I'd say, simple, clear.
I'm not going to go through that slideshow.
No, please, thank you.
I'm not going to get into the depth. I'm going to try to keep it high level and just point out that there are requirements and we would like to get help.
Brief.
That's way too far into the weeds for the council.
Right. No, I understand that. Okay, I will follow up.
Good.
Let's move on and try to finish up this. Item 7B, the Resilient Coastal Communities Program. I have no idea on where the town stands with that and if the ERC needs to help or not.
Yeah, I'm working on that. Staff has been in a couple webinars, orientations on this program. I was in one yesterday. It is a 4-part or 4-phase program. In the strategy program is phase 1 and 2. Phase 1 includes 6 steps, and that is develop a community action team of at least 5 members. I'm currently working with staff to pull that together, what that looks like. Meetings have to be advertised, all that stuff.
Are you looking at me for a reason?
No.
Okay, good.
You smiled at me. That's why I was looking at you. I was trying to make eye contact. And then phase 2 is identify a potential solutions, consolidate, and prioritize the projects. Phase 3 and 4 will depend on applications being submitted for our projects, and I'll get into that in a second. And then we'll find out how that is rewarded early next year. So important dates, our contract dates is estimated to start on June 1st. Our
That's with Moffett.
Moffett and Nickel. Yep.
Okay.
And I've had a preliminary conversation with Robert Neal with that as well. Our progress report date will be August 31st. The phase 3 and 4 application period opens in December. Phase 1 and 2 debrief is in January. Phase 1 and 2 contracts expire in January. And then phase 3 and 4 awards announced in early 2022. Well, if we're awarded, if one of our projects is awarded as the applications into 3 and 4, roughly $50,000 will be awarded, and anything above that will need to be on the town. So projects, they want a team to get together to come up with 3 projects. One of them is a natural resource-based project. Another one is an infrastructure-based project. And then the third project would be a hybrid of both. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. For example, I think Castle Beach did one a few years ago, or is working on it now. They got a grant. If y'all drove down to the Baptist Assembly at Castle Beach, if you spit in that road, it floods. And down next to the Coast Guard station, they've actually worked at where it gets really bad. They've actually got a grant as part of their resiliency project, and they've been working on this for a few years to get pumps to pump the water out of the road and back toward out of the road, because there's nowhere for it to drain.
Right.
Because it's
Water doesn't run uphill, does it?
nope, it does not. So it's projects like that, and I'm working with Lisa. We're putting our heads together to see who would be on that team, what that team would consist of, if it's different committee members, if y'all would need to appoint, if it's working with just one committee, who would be involved with staff, all that. And then will these meetings have to be advertised and made public? Can it be done just at in a closed door type thing? We'll just have to figure all that out together. So
One thing,
So we'll keep that on our agenda for next month.
yeah, okay.
Anything else? All right, next item is the rain garden.
So the parking lot and rain garden, the funding has been approved for that. I am currently working with Dustin and Lisa, and the contractor on the taking the project to planning board for approval. It will go to TRC in May and then planning board in June. The funding for this has been approved. Lisa is starting the bid process for that project now, and then the project should start somewhere in the beginning of July.
Okay, so we'll get another update next month on that. All right, now the Coastal Federation rain garden input, that would be visiting Wilmington and we had all indicated an interest to visit, but we have to do it in 2 separate pairs. So I'll follow up with them and see what we can do. And I apologize for dropping the ball on that one. The next is the Tree City USA. I'm not aware of any.
I just wrote a note down. I'm going to check on the status of that. I've not gotten anything in the mail that I'm aware of or anything like that. So I'll try to check up and see where we're at with that. Again, it was submitted. I don't know if because of COVID, things are slower or if I missed something, or I'll check the status on that and give you an update next month.
Okay. Last month, we drafted a Earth Day proclamation and asked the council to look at it They approved it. Um, I would, we should recognize today that Earth Day is tomorrow.
That's right, that's right.
And the town has a proclamation that they support the idea of Earth Day. That Earth Day provides a forum to voice concerns about environmental issues like reducing waste, which is recycling, and climate change, clean energy, and to take personal action to create change through improving the environment. But this was signed by the mayor and on behalf of the council and is effective.
Cool.
So, Don, thank you for the
Well-
idea to do that.
Seemed pretty obvious. I mean, yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah. As far as the open ERC position, Lisa told Greg and I the other day that they'll be interviewing interested candidates sometime in the near future to fill the empty position we have. The next item is our agenda items for next month. We'll continue on the recycling. We'll continue to look at the Resilient Coastal Communities Program, stormwater, the rain garden projects, Tree City USA. Is there anything else anyone would suggest we add to the,
That's probably enough.
yeah. We have no public presence, so we have no comments. So with that, I will take a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are.